Hello. Oh no, not this again. Hold up. Okay, that is so much better. Welcome to Skylar's Political Voice. Once again, I am an 11th grader who make these videos to persuade others to find their political voice and voice their opinions even if you aren't 18 or older. You could be any age to voice your opinion, and I'm here to show you by voicing my opinion. I will be voicing my opinion on how I view the government in our society today. But as a recap of last episode of Virtues versus Freedom, we talked about how we should promote freedom or how we should promote virtue. We talked about two great philosophers and how one wanted to promote virtues, which is Aristotle, and how the other one wants to promote freedom. Today, we are going to talk about something more about promoting virtue versus freedom, but in the actual government. Today, we're going to talk about judicial activism versus judicial restraint. I know that in the last episode of Skylar's Political Voice, I sided with virtues and how it would be a better structure for our society when you give people freedom. But you have these laws that keeps the world in a structure. Because when you give people freedom, people become out of order. And some people are crazy. And that's why virtues and laws come in to help better structure and still give you freedom. Now, as we are speaking, judicial activism is more of freedom, while judicial restraint is more of virtues. And I will tell you why, but I have some very sad news. I don't side with virtues on this one. I don't side with virtues on this one. I'm going towards more of the free way of freedom. But now, I'm not saying that I'm switching up, but it's kind of different. And I will tell you why. In this lesson, as you may ask, what is judicial activism? What is judicial restraint? Well, judicial activism is the guardian of people, which means it protects people's basic rights. And it solves society problems by creating laws. Now, some of you may say, that's crazy, but it's awesome to me because people like me may think that some laws are unfair and need a change. Well, judicial activism helps you with that, but on the other hand, judicial restraint is the opposite, and it doesn't solve social, economic, or political problems. They only interpret laws. They don't even make them. They uphold laws to the Congress. Now, not saying that judicial activism is the best of the best because they have a little cons of their side, but they are better than judicial restraint. And I will tell you why. As many may say, now, why do you want freedom now? Well, judicial activism incorporates new ideas of its people. Y'all, they hear us now. We are not being ignored. Not saying that we're always ignored, but to be honest, none of our votes count as people. And not just the youngsters. I mean, we don't even get a vote, but 18 and older only have a small percentage of votes that counts. But let's not hop on this subject. Back to what I was saying. It also protects the rights of people and gives the count and the ability to be more active in checks and balances. Now, if you don't know what checks and balances are, it just gives the count a separation in the court, a separation in power. so that everyone has equal power and no one has control over the other. But I'm not finished yet. It also allows for a person discretion, which is powers to one's own judgment, as a freedom of judgment or choice, allowing for one's own opinion. Now, the cons of judicial activism. Wow. Cons are that it interferes with the independence of the legislator because they both make laws. And judicial activism is highly prone to bias, which means they can be against something, such as a law or something. Now, to go into detail about that, it does interfere with the legislator because, they do make laws. But it's like, what if the legislators don't hear us? We still have judicial activism who solves our problems and make laws for our problems to make our problems become better. So, judicial activism is like the second hand. It gives us them rights. It protects our rights. It gives us choices. But some may say no, still no, still no. Now, some may agree with judicial restraint. The pros and cons of judicial restraint is that it allows the legislators to do their jobs and they don't make laws. Which, because they only interpret them. And which interpret means to explain them. Now, they also are more likely to have a consistent court throughout the year because they follow the democratic process. See, judicial activism gets in the way, But judicial restraint is like the laid back one. They ain't trying to start an argument, or is it trying to start a fight? But as we continue to speak more about it, takes longer for political reform and limits the protection of the Constitution and the power of the court. But let's hear from some guest speakers who will also give their opinion based on which one do they side with. So I have a guest speaker with me, my cousin. Yes, he's a middle schooler, but he still gets to talk and speak his opinion. So, what you're going to learn about is basically judicial activism and judicial restraint. Judicial activism makes laws and solve community problems. But judicial restraint, it don't really solve problems. Well, it just flow. It just goes with the flow. It don't make laws. It only interprets them. So, which one do you agree on?
It's activism because it solves our problems.
My next speaker, whose face isn't going to be shown, I'm going to explain to her and she's going to answer. So, judicial activism, it do interferes with the legislative by making laws for itself. And judicial restraint is more like the chill back when let legislators do their jobs. So tell me, which one do you?
I disagree with you on this one because judicial restraint lets legislators do their jobs, and there is no need for judicial activism.
Okay, as you all have now seen, I had one person agree and one person disagree. As you can see, she was able to speak her political voice and give her opinion based on which one she's agree on. Now that you know the pros and cons of each, some may agree that judicial activism is better, like me, and some may disagree. But some may say, what is an example of each? Well, to dig deeper into each, an example of both is the case of Brown versus Board of Education, and how supporters of the judicial restraint believe that the court has overstepped its constitutional powers by writing new letters, knowing that the judicial restraint don't make laws, and that they only interpret, so they will go against this. To get into more details of this, the judicial restraint is basically saying that they shouldn't be doing this. They should let the legislators and let the court do their jobs. But The people of judicial activism believe that the Supreme Court has appropriately used its proportion, knowing that they make laws, so they agree. But they feel that they are Okay, as you all have now seen, I had one person agree and one person disagree. As you can see, she was able to speak her political voice and give her opinion based on which one she's agree on. Now that you know the pros and cons of each, some may agree that judicial activism is better, like me, and some may disagree. But some may say, what is an example of each? Well, to dig deeper into each, an example of both is the case of Brown versus Board of Education, and how supporters of the judicial restraint believe that the court has overstepped its constitutional powers by writing new letters, knowing that the judicial restraint don't make laws and that they only interpret, so they will go against this. To get into more details of this, the judicial restraint is basically saying that they shouldn't be doing this. They should let the legislators and let the court do their jobs. But the people of judicial activism believe that the Supreme Court has appropriately used its proportion, knowing that they make laws, so they agree. But they are addressing the problem of judicial activism. It's the Roe versus Wade as a right to abort. Now, say that not to say that I'll do it, but I believe you should carry your child, but we have to understand you can't force anyone who isn't ready. Women should have the ability to do whatever they want, and it's their bodies. And judicial activism made it happen by making laws to give women the ability to choose to make it happen. Now that you learned about the difference between judicial activism, which is freedom, and judicial restraint, which is virtue, let's have a dance party. Brain break, brain break, brain break, brain break. Okay, we're back. Which one do you agree on? Okay, to add on more information about judicial restraint and judicial activism, judicial restraint limits powers to the judgments to strike down laws. As opposed to the progressiveness of judicial activism, judicial restraint lets the courts uphold all acts and laws of Congress and legislators unless they are opposed to the United States Constitution. Judicial activism is an approach to exercise the judicial review or a description of a particular judicial decision in which the judge is generally considered to be more willing to decide the constitutional issues, to validate legislators or executive actions. So, judicial activism sometimes can take over the legislature and the executive because they also make laws and they make these laws. Thing that I have just learned, the word activism usually means the willingness of a judge to strike down the action of another branch of government or to overturn the judicial proceeding with no implied judgment as to whether the activist's decision is correct or not. Activist judges enforce their own views of the constitutional requirements rather than deferring to the views of the other government officials and earlier courts. They think their own ways. Judicial activism thinks their own ways. Yeah, that's why they are highly prone to bias. They can go against, they can be against, they can oppose an opinion, they can become different, they can just do things. Judicial activism, they do their own thing. That's how they have the ability to actually make laws for its people. To describe a judge to be activists in the sense to argue that they describe cases on the basis of their own policy preferences rather than the faithful interpretation of the laws, which basically means they are highly prone to bias. They go their own ways. Judicial, and I still agree with them because judicial activism helps our society in better ways. Have a much break. Okay, let's get back on the subject. I figured it out. I know why some people go with judicial restraint. Judicial restraint causes less problems than judicial activism. See, judicial activism puts down a law and have to fight against making this law. While judicial restraint just let the legislators do their job. They just chill back, let it be what it be. But y'all should want the judicial activism to take that power, to go far and to just run with it and to do and to fight for us and to fight for our community and to fight to make these laws and to help our community become more successful than ever. And said again, judicial restraint is a theory that the judicial interpretation that encourages judges to limit their exercise of their own power. Once again, it wants them to be chill. It wants them to be laid back. It is an assertion that the judges should hesitate to strike down laws unless they are obviously unconstitutional. They want them to chill with the flow. They want them to put these laws down so that judicial activism can. Judicial activism is the opposite. They want these judges to follow their lead and to make new laws and to be new people and to help our community and our society to become better. To end this episode of Scholars Political Voice, which do you agree on? Freedom or virtue? Judicial restraint or judicial activism? Please let me know down in the comment section. And I will see y'all next time on Scholars Political Voice. Subscribe.